My inquiry this year was centred around online learning, speaking and English language learners. I noticed that when we had the first lockdown earlier in 2020 that many of my English language learners were extremely reluctant to speak or turn on their cameras during conferences. I asked myself, what's going on for my learners? I wanted to find out why my students were so unwilling to speak during conferences and to get a sense of whether it was in my class only or in all of their classes that they were like this. I set up a student voice survey to try and draw this information out from them once we were back at school together. I collected data from both my 11 EAP class and my 12 REA class, but the Year 12 class was my greatest concern. I knew from my colleague, who takes almost exactly the same group of students for English, that she was having the same problems. So this was the class I selected to focus on. 12 REA is a really small class, and it's a targeted religious education class for international students who have come in from countries where they have not had exposure to religion, and especially Catholicism, before. There's only 12 members in the class, and unfortunately 3 of them didn't do the survey. But the results that I got showed that only 11%, or one student, said that they were willing to speak in conferences. 22% said they would only type, and a further 11% would only speak if under pressure. As a teacher, trying to get engagement during conferences was a nightmare when students wouldn't participate. It's extremely difficult to judge their understanding of what is going on when they won't talk. And as an ESOL teacher, knowing that speaking is an essential part of learning a language made me extremely concerned about how reluctant my students were to speak during online conferences. I knew I needed to try something so that if we ended up in this learning space again, that my students would participate. So as well as asking them about their participation in conferences, I also asked them about their confidence in speaking English and when they use English. It greatly concerned me that the students in my 12 REA class were having so few times that they were using English. Only 44% of them speak English at home. Only 33% of them chat with their classmates in English or use English during morning tea and lunch times. Only 78% of them use English when purchasing things from shops. So, over 22% of them are walking into shops and walking out without saying a word. Even worse, only 89% would use English to ask for help. From my teacher's perspective, the worst of all was that only 67% of them said that they use English during class time. So that means that 33% were not even using English during class. So essentially they were going through their whole day speaking no English at all. More than half of my class stated that they were not confident in speaking English and they tried to avoid it. This is hugely concerning. So I began to think that their lacking confidence might have been why they were sort of hiding during conferences. Many of our international student ELs lack confidence in each of the domains of language. However, when they're reading, writing and listening, they can hide. They can look like they know what they're doing, even if they have no idea. When it comes to speaking, and especially in a digital setting, I think that they physically hide. They won't turn on their camera and they won't turn on the microphone. So it led me to a hunch that regularly speaking in a structured way in class that allows for success would build their confidence, and that confidence built in class would lead to greater confidence to speak in online spaces also. I've been doing the TESOL course, and so some of the things that come out of the learning in there, which were relevant, were things like this. As well as that, I wanted to link my inquiry up to Keller's model of student motivation. There are 4 different layers of ARC's motivational strategies in the model developed by Keller. These are attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction. These all have a part to play in student motivation. The ARCS strategies that I felt were most suitable to try and were those connected to confidence, particularly the subset for building self-confidence. So the ones highlighted in red here are the ARC strategies that I thought I would try and embed. The next thing for me was, when we were back at school, to take action. So I made a real point of purposefully adding speaking activities into all of my classes in a range of different ways. So we did things like I have, who has games to practice vocabulary. We used speaking frames. I got students to hand in videos rather than writing to show learning. I had students add voiceovers to PowerPoints to tell stories, and using Screencast-O-Matic. I think it's really important that they get used to hearing themselves in that digital capacity as part of building their confidence. We used 4-3-2 speaking activities to precede writing, and we did group work requiring exchanging information in English. The sudden second lockdown had one big benefit for me, which was an opportunity to see if all the speaking activities I had been doing with my 12 REA class would in fact lead to a change. Unfortunately, given it was a shorter lockdown and with the additional pressure of being very close to the end of the school year, I only held a weekly conference with my Year 12s rather than seeing them most days. I preferred to set them work to get on with independently, after watching a teaching video from me, rather than use too much time in conferences. So we just were at a point we didn't have enough time left. So this meant that I didn't get a great deal of opportunity to judge whether their participation in conferences had changed much. And the survey that I took when we returned to school didn't really show much change in participation. However, what I did find was that their confidence as speakers of English had definitely grown. So those who rated themselves as confident speakers of English had grown from 11% to 18%. Those who rated themselves as developing confidence and beginning to use English more had grown from 33% to 55%. In Term 1, 56% of my class said they were not confident in speaking English and tried to avoid it. But by Term 3, this had dropped to only 18% of my class. 9% were somewhere between confident and developing confidence by Term 3. So presumably that one means they have confidence in some situations, but it is not yet consistent, and sometimes they become a little bit less confident again. Remember my concerns that this class were having so few times that they were using English? Well, this too had changed for the better. 44% of them remained not speaking English at home, but that's not surprising given that many of them will live in non-English speaking backgrounds. However, initially 33% had said that they chatted with their classmates in English, but by Term 3 that had gone up to 56%. There was also a similar shift from 33% to 46% of students who said that they would chat with others in English at morning tea time. But I think the one that really just made my heart so happy was that, from only 67% of my students saying that they use English during class time, now 91% said so. So where to next? Clearly, integrating speaking on a more regular and purposeful basis did have the desired effect of lifting students' confidence in using English in general. I'd love to see this expanded and try and find other mainstream teachers who would like to build an inquiry around this in the future to collaborate with. And I want to keep monitoring what happens if we have another lockdown. My hunch remains that as confidence continues to grow, students will eventually become more confident to speak in that setting also. They just haven't got there yet.